found my secret closet DVDs labeled per coworker. When I came home, he was watching and did this. Help. My boyfriend is after me and I'm in hiding. I'm crying and I'm scared to my fucking mind as I type this. He has threatened to report me to the police and expose everything to the internet. I did a terrible thing and everything I've done has messed up my chances of getting out of this without repercussions from the law. And I know I shouldn't be jailed for what I've done. I came on here to confess it all and to know what exactly I have to do. I have no one to talk to or to advise me on the next step because I have made a series of mistakes. But it wasn't as if they didn't enjoy it. The people I did it to enjoyed it. They had no qualms about it until my boyfriend caught me and outed me. I need help. I'll tell you everything that led up to my life turning into a hot seat. My boyfriend had found my secret closet with DVDs. My color had drained out of me when I got back home and found him watching them. I had been sensing a bad break was coming between us and I knew we were about to break up. We usually had a big argument prior to when a bad break was coming, and we had had a major argument before I came home and found him with his eyes wide staring at me from his laptop. What had we even argued about? What we always argued about. Money. My boyfriend wasn't giving me money and always said he wasn't responsible for me. This was someone that we lived together with. He only gave me money for groceries and the occasional gifts for birthdays and anniversaries, but aside from that, I received nothing else from him. Meanwhile, I had friends that their boyfriends gave them monthly allowance to take care of their hair, nails, and lashes. Mine insisted I work. We had been dating for over 2 years, and in that time we had broken up and come back together 3 times. And I had no idea what I saw in him, frankly. It was only the sex that had been good. So we had argued this time about how I should be pitching in according to him. The rent was crazy for only him to be paying, and he needed me to be pitching in for things since I was working. He had been like I shouldn't allow just him to be paying the bills. I needed to do something to prove that I loved him and the relationship wasn't a waste. How could he have said that? If I hadn't loved him, there was no way I would have stayed in the relationship with him. Well, that and the fact that I had nobody else on my side. I would get into my story somewhere in the middle of this like I had read in other stories here. What he said led to a big argument because I wouldn't sit back and let him tell me how I had to prove my love to him by splitting the bills. None of the other bitches I called my friends did that, so why should I? I answered him exactly as you read above. He was infuriating and I was sick of it. He told me that if I didn't want to stay with him, then I should get out of his house and never come back. I was leaving for work, so I had just given him the middle finger, hoping to get everything resolved in the evening when I got back. That didn't work out for me. I got back in the evening and my boyfriend was in my room with all my clothes on the bed and my suitcase open and my secret closet door opened with the DVDs I had placed there as backup of the second work I did. My boyfriend had just stared at me as a clip from one of my DVDs had been playing in the background, and he started asking me what they were. They were recorded scenes of me playing with my clients. I was a sex worker. Yes, feel free to judge me. After all, it had been my boyfriend that had told me to get a job and I had gotten that. I didn't steal from anyone or kill anyone. I just did what I thought to be able to cater for myself since my boyfriend wasn't doing the needful. Back to the DVDs that my boyfriend had seen. I shared the videos with my clients with the promise to delete them, but I had kept some as backup in case. Those were the ones that my boyfriend had found. He started asking me questions and telling me I needed to be in jail for holding such materials. He started asking me who the men were and asking me when I had gone behind his back to see all these men. I couldn't even say anything or even talk because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know where to begin. He had been the one that had pushed me to getting a job either way, so in my head I was like, why was I being judged by him? But I didn't voice any of the thoughts I had then aloud. My boyfriend had still been expecting an answer from me, but I ran. I ran away from the house because he began questioning me about the videos and I couldn't just deal. I booked into a hotel that night and my problems came in the morning where I started receiving threats from my boyfriend that he was going to submit all the DVDs to the police and hand me over to them. I needed a way to get out of my predicament. I needed to go and get all the DVDs back, or at least destroy them. So that was what I did. I destroyed them. I watched my boyfriend's house for about a week, noting his comings and goings, how long he stayed out when he left and how often he went out. You may be wondering how I didn't know this before since he was my boyfriend, but I just realized I never really paid attention. He usually went out in the afternoons and stayed out till late, and on my lucky day when he had gone out, I snuck in. I still had my key of the place, and he hadn't yet changed the lock, so I got in easily. The DVDs were up to 20, and although I could have carried them all and walked away, I wanted to do something that would make him pay for finding me out. I don't know what came over me, I swear. I turned on the stove and turned off the fire alarm and left. I had stayed and watched from my car as the flames engulfed my boyfriend's apartment before the fire service came rolling down the street and trying to stop the fire before the whole building went down. I did a terrible thing, but I was glad that I had destroyed the evidence so my boyfriend had nothing against me. I thought I was free. Before you come for me, it was his fault. I shouldn't have done it, but it was his fault. He had promised that he would always look out for me, and all of a sudden he switched up on me. I had grown up in a very bad place, a place where everyone was on the lookout for themselves, and if you didn't ensure your survival, you were going to get left. I had been orphaned, so I was put in the foster system and sent to foster home upon foster home until I turned 18 and ventured out on my own. This was when I had first started out as a pole dancer in a strip club. I had kept it PG because I was still young, but I needed money to pay for rent and food, and on some nights the pay was good, and on some nights it was a struggle with the other strippers at the club. I had worked there for 2 years and had been moved up to stripper position. So I was getting money from the work. It was pitiful, my life. However, it had been okay money for me. I had gathered clients and I had loyal ones. I doubt any of you reading this would know how the strip club business was, but it had been tough. Then my boss told me they had to close down the business because he wanted to move out of the city and go somewhere else. I couldn't afford to go to another place and start over again, so I declined to follow him. Within a twinkle of an eye, I was put out of something that had given me a roof over my head and food on my table. In a year, the money I had saved up was gone. Rent had taken all the money and food, and I had to start looking for other means to survive. I had gotten into various trouble, and I had been caught shoplifting and had been about to be beaten black and blue when my boyfriend had saved me. I guess I don't have a right to call him my boyfriend anymore. I would use a fake name for him like I've seen others do when narrating their experiences on this platform. Jason. I'm not saying this to garner pity from you all, but I want you to know my backstory to make sense of my situation. The situation I had found myself in. Jason saved me from being beaten up by the security guys and then being sent to the police and had offered to pay for the stuff I had wanted to shoplift. We had exchanged contacts that day and he had asked me if I could meet him for coffee the next day. I had no idea what he had seen in me then. But he had been persistent, asking me how I was, if I was okay, what I did for work. He had even gotten me a cleaning position in his workplace and told me he could sponsor me to college. I would say nothing but the truth as I'm telling this my experience. Yes, Jason had put me through college for 3 years and had gotten me a job after I was done. This was before he then asked me to be his girlfriend. He made sure I finished schooling before he asked to properly date me. You never found that kind of man anywhere except in the heavens. I could have sold my soul to him because he had actually been good to me, but I'll admit that I have an extremely bad character, and things started falling apart after our first breakup during our short 2-year relationship. Like I said, he had gotten me a job in the company he had worked for, but 2 months into dating, Jason had said he wanted to start his own company, so he was leaving the firm where we had already been employed. I had asked if I could resign too, and he told me it was okay, that he could provide for us anyway while starting up his own company. He had even promised that he could take care of me, and the startup of the company won't be long and profit was guaranteed. 2 months later, things weren't easy and the money wasn't coming as it was meant to. This was when we had a big quarrel and he had told me I needed to get a job to be able to take care of myself. Note he had said taking care of myself because he didn't want to be giving me money for upkeep anymore. I told him that that wasn't what other people were doing in a relationship. He had promised to take care of me and he was going back on his word. So I had left him that first time and ventured out on my own and saw how tough the streets were, so I came back to him. This is my life. You don't have the right to tell me how to live it or judge how I lived it, so keep your opinions to yourself in the comments. I went back to Jason the second time and agreed to get a job this time. I got greedy, I'll admit. I saw my friends out there having what I was supposed to have and I got jealous, and it was at this same time that my former boss from the strip club hit me up and said he was back and had some clientele if I was open for a job. Jason had wanted me to get a job, but I had the feeling he wouldn't appreciate what I was doing, so I took the job and applied for a position at a bakery as a cover-up. A leopard never changes its stripes, I guess. I had to make money to take care of myself, and everything was all coming back to me all at once. I accepted the job like 4 months after we had gotten back together when things were really getting harder. I had promised myself that I wasn't going to do anything with the clients, that I was just going to dance on the pole. But 4 months into it, we had our second quarrel and got back together again, and something in my mind just changed, and I decided to start sleeping with other men for extra cash. Now that I think about it, I never really used the money to do anything but get material things. And if I could turn back the hands of time, I would, and go back to when my former boss had called me with the offer and said no. What had made me record the videos in the first place, you may be wondering. I wanted a failsafe, In case I ran out of money, I could use the recorded videos as a liability. My clients knew I was recording them. It had added to the appeal of me as a stripper. And sometimes they asked for the videos to relive the moment of pleasure they had gotten from me. However, they thought I deleted the videos after the whole escapade. I didn't. I had kept the videos to use to bribe their wives. That had been my retirement plan. I would tell Jason that I was going to see my friend for 3 days. My lie went along the lines of my friend was pregnant and needed all the help she could get. I usually scheduled a 3-day stay, and in that time I would make sure that my work schedule aligned to it. There had been no friend in honesty. I had made it up, and when he asked about knowing said friend, I would tell him that she was cranky and didn't like meeting people. I had told him she was one of my foster home friends and she was heavily pregnant. Jason hated, according to him, girly stuffs, and that included pregnancy, periods, and everything about the female anatomy, so it was easy to lie to him about those types of stuff. I lied to him about where said made-up friend lived and told him that it was in the criminal part of Brooklyn. He had worried for my safety, of course, but I had told him that he didn't need to worry about me. Jason is from the upper echelons of Brooklyn and hadn't been in the dredges of the city. He had been quite fascinated that I was an orphan. This was why I was berated that he didn't give me money, because I knew he had it, or at least his daddy had it, but it was like he was doing it to punish me or see if I would stick around. The guy had paid for my tuition through college. That was to tell you he wasn't no small funds. He had the money, but decided to venture out on his own, and then he had decided to start his own company when I had warned that it might not go as smooth as he might have thought out in his head. So I needed to venture out on my own from under the wings of my boyfriend. Anyway, I knew Jason was never going to come looking for me after I told him my friend's place was in the bad parts of the city. I had assured him of my safety, and he didn't bother with asking me about it anymore. It had been maddening at the beginning that he didn't care enough to bother about my whereabouts. But when I started making my money from my clients, I didn't bother anymore. At least I could do what I wanted without him disturbing me, and I could still keep my relationship with him. And everything was balanced until we had our third quarrel about how I should be paying for rent and other foodstuffs. That wasn't my job. He was the man of the house, even though we weren't married. He was the man. He was meant to be the provider while I took care of the house. After that had been what the Bible said regarding marriage. The man was supposed to provide, not tell the woman to go and work. It was at that point I knew he couldn't keep his promise to me, and it was time to leave the relationship. It was also the unfortunate time that he had found my DVDs and ruined everything that I had planned for. I had to burn the evidence because there was no way I was going to jail, and I wasn't going to sit back and watch it happen. I had placed the DVDs in his laptop close to the stove I had left on, so I knew they were going to be destroyed first. It never occurred to me that Jason would have backup, or there would be another whole thing at play until 2 weeks after I had set his apartment on fire. I have given you all the backstory of my entire life, and I admit I had not grown up right and I had made some bad decisions, but it didn't warrant Jason's revenge on me. I had only wanted to make a living. I wanted to make it. I went the wrong way, and Jason found out that I was cheating on him and wanted to make me pay for it. That was why he was still calling me after I had burnt down his apartment. I had thought that it was all over, that he wouldn't try to look for me, but then 2 weeks after the whole issue, I was ambushed by Jason as I was leaving the bakery where I worked. Apparently, my setting fire to his apartment was a waste of time because he had copies of everything. He had known what I had been doing ever since he had evidence thrown in his face. One of my client's wives had found out that her husband had a video with me and had gone ahead and investigated, and somehow had linked it back to me and Jason. Jason's father hadn't been on good terms with me, so when the woman had come to him saying she had information on me, his father had decided it was time his son received some sense. I couldn't believe it. Jason had known way before he had found my DVD stash. In fact, he has been looking for it and hadn't randomly stumbled on it. He had asked me to start paying the rent so he could trace where my source of income was from instead of asking me outrightly, so I wouldn't be suspicious of why he was asking. I had thought I was stealthy, but someone had found me out. Jason told me he had thought the woman had been bluffing, but he had followed me out one of the times I had said I was going to see my friend, and he had found out that there was no friend. It wasn't enough that I had cheated on him with so many guys, but he had set his apartment on fire too. He had a video of me leaving his apartment after leaving the stove on. Age had caught me on camera arranging things to set his house on fire, so he had ample evidence against me. This was where I got scared. He could call the police on me, and at that very moment I had nowhere to run to. But luckily he didn't call the police on me, but had told me to beware of his revenge. Silly me, I had taken his evidence lightly instead of as the serious warning it was, until I was kidnapped by the woman that had opened the investigation tab on me. Apparently I had dabbled in politics, LOL. My stupid, unfortunate luck. One of the men I had had as my clients still is, a politician, and it was his wife that had found the video and seen me as a loophole to his political career that she needed to put out. She had told me herself when her men had picked me up from my workplace and carried me to an unknown place. The witch had looked smug when she was telling me that I was going to be gone in a blink of an eye. I didn't know things could get this bad. If you're wondering how I had escaped alive, she gave me 3 days to use and tidy up my ends if I had a family. Right now, I'm in hiding. Jason had showed up to my workplace with the FBI, but I had run away through the back when I had spotted them. This was when I had run into the woman and she told me she was going to unalive me to tie up loose ends. I don't know what to do right now, and I'm currently hiding and typing this. I'm even using VPN so they wouldn't trace my location. Imagine the police and the rich after you. In case no one hears of an update from me, just know I've probably been unalived and my body has been dumped in the water. But if I've been arrested, I would definitely give an update before the court sentence in my arrest. I'm hoping I get out of the bind I have put myself in before the situation becomes worse or gets to any of the two options. If any of you knows of a way I could get a place to hide so everything dies down, or if anyone knows a place I can get a quick passport change and fly out of the country, yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a quiet place like the Sahara where no one would even think to look for me. Or if there's any other suggestions to get me out of my predicament, I would gladly take it, please. I really need your help, please. I know what I did was very wrong and I shouldn't have done it. I know I shouldn't have made the choices I made, but growing up I had no one on my side and no one to advise me. Now I'm stuck with the consequences of my actions and I think I'm going crazy. Help, please.